Welcome to Hunden Happy Hour at the intersection of real estate development, economic development, and tourism development, where we really get into in-depth conversations on the real stories of how these complex transformational real estate projects get built that make destinations and place better. My name is Rob Hunden, CEO of Hunden Partners, and today I've got with me Steve Hammerly, Executive Vice President of Advisory Services at Hunden Partners. In today's episode, we are focused on Tulsa, Oklahoma, and today I'm joined by Renee McKenney, CDME President of Tulsa Regional Tourism. And we're going to be focused on all the great things that make Tulsa a great place to live, work, play, and visit. One of the most game-changing projects going on right now, the new and upcoming headquarters hotel for the Arvest Convention Center and BOK Center. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you.
Yeah.
So first off, I want to sort of go back. You've been heading up Tulsa Regional Tourism since 2022.
Correct.
But before this, I'd like to get everybody's sort of origin story and background, because that's often just as fascinating as the last few years. So take us back to the beginning. How did you get into this business?
Sure.
And how did you end up in Tulsa? So leave no stone unturned.
No stone. Okay. Well, truth be told, I wanted to be Julie McCoy from the Love Boat. So I'm going to take you all the way back for those that even know the Love Boat. But I really wanted to be a cruise director.
That's awesome.
And my mom was in the travel industry as a travel agent and in the cruise industry. So I grew up with it and traveled a lot and just followed from there, went to the hotel side. I worked with the Adams Mark Hotel in St. Louis, and then I ended up with Southwest Airlines in marketing. So I went on the airline side, and then, from land and sea and air, I ended up from there with Disney Destinations, so doing global sales. But I was a client as well of Visit Dallas, so I started my own meeting planning business. So I kind of did this whole not your normal trajectory, and I ended up with Visit Dallas for about 9 years and was Chief Experience Officer, the first in the country in that role for Visit Dallas.
Tell me about how working at Visit Dallas sort of shaped you. What years were you there from and to, and talk about how that sort of got you more interested in being the head of a DMO.
Well, I worked with some really great people at Visit Dallas, and many have become CEOs, from Cassandra Mate to Tom Noonan to Jay Burris. And so getting to work around just really big thinkers, great people, and Craig Davis has become a very good friend. But what that role as Chief Experience Officer was kind of moving me into a role of creating partnerships and growing the destination that doesn't have mountains or water and great people. So I had to lean into what makes Dallas great, and then working with Arlington and Fort Worth and growing that destination even bigger. So I would say that role that all happened in the 2010s. So we hosted Super Bowls, the Mavericks were champs. There was a lot of excitement at that period, and so I was really glad to be a part of that and all the growth that was happening, because we opened the Omni Hotel, for example.
And so then what was your role before you switched and moved to Tulsa?
So in going to Tulsa, it was interesting because I had also that Disney background, and that was kind of in between. I was at Visit Dallas, went to Disney, went back to Visit Dallas. So Tulsa came calling, and it was a role where I'd always wanted to lead a DMO, and I had tried, and it was the great opportunity that worked out. So I came to Tulsa not knowing much about Tulsa. I knew Oklahoma City. I hadn't been to Tulsa in 20 years. And so when Searchwide had brought the opportunity to me, I said, I'm excited to take a look at it. My husband and I drove there, and I experienced it as a visitor. And in doing so, I called back and said, this is where I want to be. Like, this is a great opportunity. I could see it. And I also think going to school in Austin, I saw change in Austin when I was there. So I just felt like I'd seen this story before. I knew this movie, and I could see what the opportunities were.
So you felt like there was possibility for Tulsa to become a new version of itself?
I did. And I saw it instantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you got there, okay, there's the excitement of landing the new gig. Now you're in charge of tourism for
Right.
the entire community. So then what happens?
Yeah.
You look around and you've got work to do, right? So
Yes.
do you see your role as being the chief placemaking officer for the community?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So what were your big items on the to-do list?
Well, first, I was a little overwhelmed because I could see it and I wanted to connect the dots. But coming from Texas, there's this sort of bold brashness of like, hey, we've got this. And went to Tulsa, it was very humble. It was everyone, it was just like, they loved their city, but they needed somebody to broadcast that. And so I think step one was really getting out in the community and having a listening tour and then realizing where the gaps were. And the biggest gap to me was that we didn't have a convention center hotel. And when I looked at downtown, the vibrancy was kind of limited to some pockets that had new attractions. So we had a wonderful arts district, but downtown was just quiet. And so I needed to make a phone call, which, you guys with Hunden, my very first call, because I called Craig Davis at Visit Dallas and I said, who do I talk to about this? Because placemaking was definitely what I saw that needed to happen. And thankfully, you picked up the phone on a call with your group and you were in a rental car, and that's how it all started. And that was the brain trust that I needed at that time.
Yeah, that was a fun story. Back in, I think it was early 23.
They're late 20, yeah.
Or late 22. So
Yeah.
yeah, around that time period, yes, it was like Craig said, I've got somebody that needs your help. And so that was super exciting for me, but I was like, well, I don't want to miss this opportunity to have this conversation and lead someone through this journey.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that, yes, I was on the rental car shuttle bus,
Yes.
going from airport to wherever, and sort of gave you our pitch.
You picked up the call.
Yes.
Yes.
Gave you the pitch, and then that was the start of this great relationship. And this was right about the time that you joined
Right.
Hunden Partners as on the advisory side, which is when we sort of go from study to execution of a project. We need all the right pieces and parts to come together. So let's
Right.
talk about the timing, because for a lot of people out there, we have been through, Steve and I, 30 to 40 years of sort of the placemaking journey. And each one of those is a bit arduous. It is not a straight line, but it can be made as efficient as possible. But it often feels like you're doubling back and one step forward, one step back, and it can be a lot. So people often want to know, well, what's the time frame that these things can happen in? So let's talk about the process and sort of what the steps were in the process. First, I think you needed to get a study done to understand, does this thing make sense?
Right.
And how big should it be? Where should it be? And
Right.
what's the rationale?
So you really coached me through that. So I appreciate Hunden for doing that. It was having a team around me to coach me. And as a first-time leader, I really needed that to make sure I had confidence in the process. So we did a feasibility study and just talked about what needed to happen and really kind of digging through that. So mid-2023. Then Q1 of 24, the financing and the developer engagement started. So we took that feasibility study, and then we were able to get that engagement happening. We've presented to the mayor. At the time was Mayor G.T. Bynum. Began the RFQ process, and the RFQ release was Q4 of 24. And then the RFP submittals, we had 3 developers at that point for the RFP. And then we started working with your team, with Hunden, through all the negotiations. So I know Steve was my right-hand man through much of that process. Then made the priority with now we have a new mayor and a new administration. So brought that all to life.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I mean, when you look at the timing of the process, the one thing that sort of keeps things held together, and Renee, that was you and your team, because these projects take time.
Yes.
And I know there were some changes in political leadership, but at its core, the project makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And so you did, from my perspective, an amazing job of just keeping folks' eye on the ball.
Yes.
And these are processes, these take a long time. If you just lay out the steps, It doesn't have to be
Right.
that long, but they happen in the real world. And there are politics and there are
Yeah.
constituencies that need to be built. And so that is a big part of what was embedded in the process.
And I knew enough to be dangerous, so it was good having your expertise at Hunden.
Right, because sometimes you can go too fast or you can miss a moment by going too slow. So timing is critical, but also sort of checking some boxes along the way. And so while we were on the break, we talked a little bit about the fact that after the study was done, that study needed to not only hit the newspaper, but be presented to the key stakeholders.
Right.
So you had Tulsa and many other cities do these intercity visits with the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development and Tourism, where you go and learn from the best of other places every year. You go pick a different city. So you've got a contingent here in Chicago, about 50 people here in Chicago this week. But that year in 2023 was Austin, Texas.
That's right.
And so I was there at the same time, and we were touring the Moody Center, but then you had organized with the Chamber a big sort of educational event for me to take everybody there through the study that sort of answered all their questions. Was it a rational investment? Why? Why not? Why have other cities done this? What have been their experience? What's the impact going to be? And if you don't do this, what's the negative impact, right? So anyway, so that was smart for you to set that up because it got all of the stakeholders sort of singing from the same song sheet. Which was really important because then you had to figure out, well, how the hell are we going to pay for this?
Yes.
And that was the next part. So we moved from a study where it's like a cut and dried sort of thing into more of a sausage making. And that's where Steve and Matt and all of us started to get into these weekly and bi-weekly calls with city finance and others to figure out how are we going to solve this gap? Because the gaps are big.
The gaps are big and they get bigger every month because where we are. But I would say Austin, I'm so glad you brought that up because that was a really great opportunity. Visit Tulsa is part of the Chamber. So I have a role as SVP of our tourism with the Chamber, and the intercity visit is so important because it's 200 of our stakeholders visiting another city and learning. And so knowing a little bit about how Austin went through its transformation and being able to bring you in as a subject matter expert at this time that we were doing it was perfect. It built advocacy and really helped answer questions that just, it was great to have Hunden leading that conversation.
So you mitigated some potential pushback so it was smart for you to roll it out, educate everybody. And so, okay, so then you get into that sausage making of, well, how are we going to pay for it? So Steve, do you want to talk about kind of how you started to move through that process and how it's similar and maybe it rhymes with what you do in other cities, but every place is different because they have different tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is you sort of look at what your goal is. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Right. And to your point about, Rob, that you talk about sort of building constituency, building support, you have to believe in what it is that you want to do because it will be hard and it's challenging. And then the next question is, well, how are we going to pay for this? And so you put forth a plan, but you also have to recognize that that is a forward-looking plan. Right. You have to have a sense that you can get from point A to point B. The next step is having that plan. You also have to recognize things will change because you are entering a dynamic marketplace. Costs change, the economy changes, and so the important thing is to then get into the marketplace. And ultimately, it's about finding the right development partner. And as you get real costs, you get real information, you have a partner that's going to help deliver the project. It's really about then solving it. So you use it as an initial starting place. The financing plan you had, that may change. Right. But the biggest piece is having the right partner on board. And so that's a partner on the development side, but it's likewise having the support of the political leadership to solve the problem. Right. The problems can be solved. They just take a lot of work.
So let's go back. It's super helpful. Let's go back and ask the question, why did you think that the headquarters hotel was the number one thing that needed to be solved? What was the convention center, or is the convention center hemorrhaging or not able to compete for because you don't have this thing.
I would say because I had come from destinations where that becomes your epicenter of all activity. And so when I would walk into the RVS Convention Center, we do very well in amateur sports and the BOK Center, our arena right next door. But the convention center was not able to, there were no breakouts space available. It was very large ballrooms, limited breakout space, zero walkability. So you have a couple of hotels there, but they're not connected, and they're not walking through an entertainment district or coffee shops or anything like that. So it was hard to find the front door. And if I was having trouble finding the front door, I knew it was going to be difficult to sell that. Also, just the feasibility study really accented the fact that we needed those rooms. I started tracking lost business, and in tracking that was even more eye-opening than I thought it would be. And so when you realize the opportunities that were lost and getting everybody on board to see that we were leaving money on the table.
Lots of lost business. You had seen your sort of frenemy, Oklahoma City,
Yes.
Open up a new headquarters hotel during
Up
the
in the Omni.
pandemic. Yep, new convention center,
Yeah.
downtown, mixed use right up to the front door, major parks, and just
Right.
great placemaking all around. So they were putting their package together,
Right.
and you're trying to play catch up. And of course, you're not just competing with them, you're competing with the whole region of the central time zone. Any city in the central time zone
right.
you're competing with. So that you could tell, like, if we don't solve this, we're going to we cannot compete at the same level as the others.
Well,
Absolutely.
what I was just saying is one of
Yeah.
the things, and I know you know this, is it's just the market that you compete in, they are all making moves to advance. And so the act of not doing anything means you're going to fall behind.
Absolutely.
And so that's also something to consider, is there's a cost to doing nothing.
Well, and I'm very involved in industry, so with Destinations International and U.S. Travel and all of these groups, when you're sitting around the table with other thought leaders around the country and you're realizing what they're doing, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to take me 2 to 3 years. I've got to start now, because every day time is ticking. And that was one of the main things that just kept me up at night, is that every month that passed is that we're losing another opportunity.
Yeah. And there aren't that many cities left that don't have a major headquarters hotel attached to their convention center. And those that are left are figuring out, for the most part, how to get them done. Cincinnati, Detroit, now today Pittsburgh says they think they've got a game plan. Many other cities like that. We're working in Milwaukee. We'll see what ends up happening with them. But everybody's that hasn't done it over the last 30 years is finally
They need
doing
other
it.
people's money.
Yes. And
Yes.
so so it used to be, it's sort of a market expectation. So 30, 40 years ago, if you just had a convention center, you could get conventions,
Right.
right? And then starting in about 1995 to 2000, this notion of having a connected headquarters hotel really became critical. So
Right.
then it was about that, and it was about the walkable package of hotels around. And then it was about having all the best ballrooms and meeting rooms in the facility. So it was about the right facility, the right hotel, the right package of hotels. And then recently, it's this walkable, fun entertainment district where you can eat, dine, shop, have a good time, and you don't have to get in a cab or an Uber. You can just fall out of the convention center or your hotel and do that. So the expectations have just changed.
Right.
And so now it sounds like we have a couple of things to solve now in Tulsa, right? So, but it starts with a hotel. But does it also include a district?
Absolutely. I always think about it from when we travel, like, what do you remember? What do you like? And it really is that emotional connection to the city. You don't want to just be in a meeting room all day. So I want to experience, the walkability, a brewery, the people. And that's where I think these districts become so important, because what are you going to remember? You're going to remember outside of those walls. And so that's where I see, and as I'm walking, when you start visualizing all of the business that gets done outside of that meeting space and the networking opportunities. And so I think big picture is just creating that vibrancy.
Yeah, and what's interesting is your comment, it's about the guest's experience.
Right.
It's not that complicated. Just think about what you want to experience when you go somewhere, and you want to have a convenient hotel next to a nice modern convention center with a lot of really nice amenities right nearby. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, and so, but we have to build that environment because the convention centers weren't always built where all the fun stuff was happening.
Right.
And Chicago's had that challenge for forever. I mean, Chicago's McCormick Place is very dispersed from where like Michigan Avenue is and all of the other stuff. So every city's had its challenges, but some have done it really well, like Austin, where you fall out of the convention center right onto 6th Street. So
That's right.
You're right there having a good old time. So, okay, let's talk about then the reality check. Convention headquarter hotels are darn expensive.
Yes.
Per key in any metric you can imagine.
They don't math. Yeah.
Yes, the math hurts.
Yes.
Right. But why is that? They're almost like public goods in a sense that if you don't have them, your convention center can't really work. So they're sort of an extension of the convention center. But what are all the bells and whistles that are part of it? And of course, I'm asking a question I know the answer to. But from your perspective, was there anything surprising about what a headquarters hotel needed that if you didn't have all those things in the headquarters hotel, it wasn't going to work?
I think as Hunden Partners and as we talked and went through everything, it is that food and beverage experience. It's the entertainment experience. It's all of those things. And I think convenience matters. You know, you don't want to have to Uber everywhere and do everything or have transportation issues with, you know, motor coaches and all of that. So I think all of those conversations need to be brought in early. And I think the placemaking is number one. I mean, what I noticed with Tulsa is that we are known for our music scene. We are known for our entertainment and now filmmaking scene, very much like Austin in a lot of ways, or Nashville. But people weren't seeing that when they come to our convention center.
What's interesting about the hotel opportunity in Tulsa is there's the point about the district. There's something that's a positive and it's also a challenge. And so the location of the hotel is located next to a public plaza and parking garage that was built in probably the 70s.
70s, government buildings.
And so from an experience standpoint, it is not nice.
No.
And so, and that's
and it's hard to find the front door.
And that's being kind.
Yes.
And so the challenge is there'll be a nice new hotel, but immediately adjacent to it is this space that just has to get renovated.
It does.
And so there's the challenge is that cost starts to append itself to the hotel project, but the reality is it needs to be done because that then will create the district and it will help knit the area together. It will connect the hotel to the front door of the convention center. It's interesting how that can become such an amazing public space. And I know Tulsa has great architecture and a tradition of doing some great public spaces. And so just from our perspective, you know, and you've completely sold me on Tulsa. I'm like all in.
I'm so glad.
Tulsa is just an awesome place. I love going there.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to imagine what that space will be like. And I don't think people realize how impactful that part of the project is going to be.
Yes.
Because I think it's going to knit that together and start helping other things in the downtown.
And I think people are very surprised with Tulsa in that, you know, it's green. It's in green country. So green space is very important. And I think we need to pull all of that in.
Let's finish talking about where this process has taken us because we've gotten into the weeds a little bit. We've talked about all kinds of things. So there was a study, then there was a part of the process to figure out, well, how do we creatively solve the financial feasibility gap? And so that took about 6-ish months, I think.
Yeah.
And then after that, well, while that was happening, there was market sounding or market testing that you all did at Hunden Partners to figure out would actual real live developers, and frankly, there are just a handful around the country that know how to do headquarters hotels really well, would they be interested in Tulsa? And what about the brands? And so I participated in many of those calls. Steve, talk about that process, about how long that took with figuring out the financing, and then we got into the RFQ piece. So do you want to just color that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the process, so there's, analysis and work we're doing on the financing, but the really important part of it is engaging with at a national level, the development community. There are only a handful of developers that can take on a large, complicated project like this. It's important to know that when we are going to the market, there will be a receptive audience. And so the importance of the market soundings, the importance of engaging with different developers is twofold. We learn information from them about how they view projects today, what's important to them, what are the important elements. And the other piece that's important is it gives us an opportunity to sort of, quietly generate support and interest. And so it works both ways. And I think that's an important part of having a successful process of engaging developers. And so we want to make sure that when we're out in the marketplace, there's a receptive marketplace.
Yeah, I always say it's match.com between the public and private sectors. And so we need to really understand if we're going to swipe right or swipe left on each other, right? So we're all putting our best assets forward, right? And through that process, we determined that there were some brands and developers interested. So what a lot of people don't know is that the brands don't build hotels. Now, there are one or two out there like Lowe's and Omni that are both a brand and a developer. But like the Marriotts and Hiltons and Hyatts of the world, they're typically not developers. They're a brand that's going to latch onto a developer's project. So I just think that's something that people should know, but not everybody understands that. So it's good to sort of get everybody on the same page, understand which brands and developers are interested. So you went through that process. When did you all start going through the process of doing a developer RFQ, which qualified developers and sort of said, hey, if you're interested, throw your hat in the ring. We're going to do a little tour of the community and get you interested. When did all that start? And then that led to an RFP, right?
Right. So we started 24 that we were in the marketplace with the request for qualifications. And the point of that is ultimately the development teams are going to invest a lot of time and a lot of money in it. And so the one thing we want to do is generate interest. The point of the request for qualifications is to really get the development community excited about the project, to sell, in this case, Tulsa, and to sell that market, and to get qualified developers. There are good developers that may not pursue just send me a proposal. And so that's an important part of the process. So we did that November, I think it was early January, we received qualifications.
Right.
We created a short list. Now, you had formed on the city side of things, and I think it was some other community partners that were on a selection committee.
We were.
And we served as in an advisory capacity. There was a short list that was created, and then from there we issued a request for proposals, and that was looking for designs and financial proposals from prospective developers.
And I will say with Hunden Partners, you were truly like connected. We were talking daily about, this is what I'm hearing. This is a concern. Can you answer this, address this? So as a team, I think we really brought forward, a way to sell it together and address any issues together.
Yeah, and I will say, it really was a partnership because the document was issued through the city of Tulsa and their procurement department. There was truly a team. If you look at the document, it looks as much like an advertising piece as it does a request for proposals.
And it's a robust document that you put together. Thank you.
We were happy to do it, and we're happy with sort of where we're at right now in the process.
So where are we in the process?
Here's the thing that I think people need to remember, and I know we've said this throughout the whole process, is this is really about finding the right development partner. Because the project will take time. There will be hurdles, there will be challenges. There's not going to be, you don't get a proposal and say great and you sign on the dotted line and you're off to the races. And so right now, I think it was in the latter part of the summer, you all selected Matthews Southwest as the development team. I feel really good that you all selected the right partner. We worked closely to sort of arrive at that decision. We're in the process right now of trying to solve, for some real world challenges. And so construction costs, are an
Continue
issue.
to escalate. Yes.
And they continue to escalate. And so you're also working right now on raising the lodging tax,
Yes.
which is sort of a pillar and a part of the financing of all of this. And so the project continues to advance, and I feel good how it's
Yes.
moving forward, but it's got all these different pieces that have to reach alignment.
We uncovered lodging tax hasn't been raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma since 1984. So, things that we are able to look at that will help solve that is that we're all working together, and we have a building there that needs to be raised. And so there's a lot of moving parts, but what you all taught me at Hunden is we don't have to wait. Like, let's get these parallel planes going at the same time, and really educating all of our stakeholders on how to do that.
All right, Renee, let's pause the conversation for what we like to call sip and spill. And it's a chance for our audience to get to know you and Tulsa a little bit better. Are you ready to spill some tea?
Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. So what is your favorite happy hour place or experience in Tulsa?
I love our breweries, and we are known for our breweries. So there's quite a few, from She Brews to Solera to Cabin Boys. That's my favorite, on a nice patio.
There you go.
With a
and you often you'll have an ice storm one day, and then you can go golfing the next day.
That's true. We're known for golf too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hosted more PGA championships.
Good answer. Okay, okay. This is going to be a tough one, because as we were talking during the break, Tulsa, for a city of its size, has lots of arts, culture, and entertainment opportunities and assets. Many of them right downtown and in the arts district. So, but do you have a favorite arts and culture venue?
I love the arts district because we have the Woody Guthrie Center, the Bob Dylan Center, Greenwood Rising. You can step out and go to Kane's Ballroom, which is it's 100 years old, oldest ballroom. But I have that and Route 66 because it's the centennial this year, and we are the capital of Route 66.
So Tulsa is the official capital of
we are
Route
the official
66.
capital. But I do have a heart, though. I love the Outsiders House Museum.
Okay, let's. We're going to circle back to the Outsiders because it's a cultural piece that bears conversation. Okay, your favorite dinner reservation.
Ooh, that's tough. Okay, so we have a lot of James Beard award-winning restaurants, which that surprises a lot of people. I love the Summit Club because I love being up high and seeing the city. I think that's, it's a private club, but I love that, that's an opportunity to really get that bird's eye view. But El Cime is it's a James Beard nominated restaurant in the Farm Bar. So.
Okay, very good. So that's one that you have to take me to next.
I will.
Okay, do you have a favorite mansion?
Ooh, Harweldon.
Okay, tell us about that.
So the Harweldon is on the river, which is now Zinc Lake. So we've dammed up the river. We had the big dam party, and we have a waterfront now. But the Harweldon mansion was built, Teresa Knox, who owns Church Studio as well, built it, and it was from the 1920s in the oil capital of the world, and it's on the water, and it's also a very exclusive bed and breakfast. And Paul McCartney he did a nice Instagram post in front of there.
Oh, great.
On the river.
That's
Very
fantastic.
cool.
And I'm going to ask Steve to talk about one of your favorite transformational developments in Tulsa that you talk about all the time.
That's easy. It's the Gathering Place.
Yes.
And I have seen and traveled a fair amount and have seen a lot of great parks. Mm-hmm. I think the Gathering Place is easily one of the nicest public parks in the world. It is just... The attention to detail is second to none. Mm-hmm. And I remember being there for the first time, and honestly, I wished I was 10 years old. Yeah. Because there are just great climbing structures, and it's a wonderful experience for anybody, but being a kid there would be an absolutely amazing experience.
It's amazing. And it was just named Best Park in the U.S. by USA Today 3 years running.
Wow.
So
I'm not surprised.
And if Disneyland and Central Park got together, I think that's it's your free Disneyland is what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
It's truly an awesome place.
Yeah.
And many people do not know about it. But if you get a chance to go to Tulsa, maybe on Route 66, you should absolutely take a gander at it and experience it. And then it's right by the river that you've dammed up where you can go kayaking now.
Yeah, and walking and hiking and biking all right there.
Favorite architecture or building that has favorite architecture?
The Philbrook Museum is fabulous. A lot of people don't know that the Phillips family, Wade Phillips and Phillips 66, their buildings downtown, they have incredible architecture on Boston. So the Philbrook Museum was their summer home, and it's like we call it Tuscany in Tulsa. It's very Italian, 1920s, but I love the old and the new. So you get this, we kind of step back in time and see what the world was like. And we have such an incredible history in Tulsa with the sovereigns. And
you took us to the Gathering Place and there on one of our first visits for this project, and I remember being blown away by imagining that this was somebody's home.
Yes,
and
summer home.
Yeah, it's
5 minutes from downtown.
Absolutely incredible. Favorite part of downtown?
I would say my absolute favorite part of downtown is the Arts District. I love to what we have First Fridays. We have a very strong arts community, and so you have live music 365 days a year, and that's really a great place to see it and experience in the museums. And we have an outdoor ballpark, and soccer plays in our ballpark as well. So baseball and soccer, and I think that's just a fun vibe. I also have to say, when you talk about just Route 66, which is 11th Street, it's almost downtown anyway. There's just some great stepping back in time for that. We're as the capital of Route 66 and being able to experience what that looked like. And so you get both of those close to downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there an annual city-wide event that takes place that you think is truly remarkable or interesting or different?
Well, this year, we have Mayfest every year, but I will say the thing that I love is Oktoberfest. Also USA Today, I keep referencing that, but we have one of the best Oktoberfests in the country. And Lufthansa has a strong presence in Tulsa, so people don't realize that. And they bring in, it is Munich that just happens right there in October, and it's so well done with German bands and German. But I have one more though. If you're a cyclist, Tulsa Tough is the coolest opportunity to see crit racing. And it goes all through the city.
So that's it for Sip and Spill.
Okay.
But now we're going to talk a little bit about The Outsiders, because it has parallel tracked our work on this headquarters hotel with your arrival in Tulsa, sort of Tulsa being exposed to the world in a whole new way as The Outsiders has become a bit of a cultural phenomenon in New York and on tour. So talk to us about that and the Tulsa connection.
So what I love about the journey of this, it's generational. S.E. Hinton, 15-year-old woman, 1967, Will Rogers High School, writes a book, The Outsiders, that becomes required reading. And it's a fascinating story. And then in the 80s, Francis Ford Coppola turns it into a movie. The actors are the Brat Pack, literally, like all of the names: Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, Diane Lane, C. Thomas Howell, Ralph Macchio. I mean, Patrick Swayze. It goes on and on. Matt Dillon. So that cast is in Tulsa, and they film it in a home, an actual home there, and it's true to Tulsa. But there's no sense of place in the book or the movie. You really don't know that. And then Angelina Jolie becomes the lead producer and turning it into a musical. And she does it along with her daughter. And they came to Tulsa and brought the principal cast and brought the producers in Jamestown Revival. And they workshopped it in Tulsa. And they loved their experience so much that they made sure Tulsa was named 67 times for 1967. So the musical is really about a sense of place. And what is even more amazing when it went to Broadway is that they everything they did in social media, and the cast said, "Come to Tulsa, we're in Tulsa." It's the best marketing we ever could have had. And now it's a national tour launched in Tulsa. The Today Show came out, was part of that, had never been to Tulsa, so we were able to have the Today Show there with the third hour, and kind of did that together. And now 29 cities are experiencing Tulsa with the Outsiders, and that's why I'm here today. They're in Chicago.
That's right. The tour is here in Chicago. We've got a huge contingent going tonight. It's going to be fantastic. And I've seen the show multiple times in New York. And it won the Tony for Best Musical for the year that it came out. And so it's recouped its investment. So all the investors are happy, and now it's just going to keep going for years. But it really has continued to shine a light on Tulsa.
And I have to say one thing. Danny Boy O'Connor, who's known for Jump Around with House of Pain, bought the house. And so having him as a big part of this has really elevated the Outsiders House Museum, which is a great place to visit.
And what I actually want to just take a second to tie all of that into development investment in the hotel, because people are coming in and they're making a substantial investment in a community, and all of these things tie together, and they make for a great place. And that really is what allows the investment, specifically at the headquarters hotel, to give the developers confidence that there is a great place that stands behind where they're investing some money.
It is.
And it's all part of the same package. It really is.
And I would say there's things that are happening like Black Wall Street and entrepreneurs and all of the things that are really happening in our native culture, Cherokee film and what the Osage and the Muskogee Nation, everybody has come together. Yeah. And it's a really cool thing for investors to see that we're the largest city on tribal land.
Now that we've sort of talked about the process, we've talked about some of the great things happening in Tulsa, there's more to come, which we'll get to. If you had to look back on the process you've undertaken so far to get where you are there any lessons learned? Are there any things that you would recommend to others out there who are saying, like, how do I do this? And what could I learn from Renee's experience?
So don't laugh when I say this, but I'm serious. I mean, reach out to Hunden Partners, reach out to our partners that have done this before and have that that knowledge that you can bring to the table, because it gave me confidence. And as a first-time leader, I really needed to have that backing to be able to say, well, experts say, and Hunden shared this with me. I think that was really important. The other thing is just reaching out to others in the industry and, that have done this before, whether they did it 5 years or 50 years before. There are so many lessons learned that we can take from, and we're in a very fast-moving market right now, so stay on top of industry trends and
case studies, best practices. What you have your industry friends that you can learn from, so absolutely do that. What about on the creative financing part? Any things you would have done differently sooner or later, not at all?
Well, I talked about lodging tax because if I had really gotten ahead of that earlier, I saw us at 5% and we had a TID, but I didn't really dig into, what needed to happen, and that's a process. So we're going to take that to a vote of the people, but we haven't raised it since 1984. We've been at 5%. We were ahead of our time in 1984, but I think that is going to solve some of our financials. So I want to get ahead of that, and I wish I'd done that a little sooner.
And so this will be an addition. So the tax rate goes up on all the hotels, but for the hotel that's in question, that's to be built, then their portion of that can help generate revenue for the project itself.
That's right. It will stay deferred within the property.
Yeah. So it's just another tool in the toolbox that you now have or will have when that gets approved. So, okay, great. And then any other lessons learned about keeping stakeholders sort of up to date on everything and making sure everybody's sort of along for the ride?
Well, as you know, I mean, there's, you have your hotel community and your business community, but the general public doesn't understand other people's money and what, the tourism economy is. So I'm really finding that those town hall meetings are going to be really important. Advocacy, really important. We started an ambassador program, and I've got now almost 800 ambassadors around town that can be, out there with the talking points. But that is where we're rolling up our sleeves for an August vote, potentially.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, good. I think that's super smart. And you came from Dallas where we had done the master plan for the whole Dallas Convention
Right.
Center area. And so they had done a very proactive approach too by going out and engaging in
Yes.
hundreds of community
Yeah.
stakeholder groups and all of that. So you can't ever take that for granted.
No, I would say that look to the playbooks of the other cities that you are inspired by. And I would say Hunden is always, being part of just this family of knowing who to talk to. You've directed me to people as well. So I can take the knowledge that I have historically, but also apply it.
Right. And that continues as we're going to be talking with other cities that have done the kind of financing that's being proposed for years so that we can hear their stories as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let me turn the tables on you one more
Okay.
time with the final sort of sip and spill, but this is a little more maybe close to your heart, which is there a local nonprofit in Tulsa
Yes.
that speaks to you and what their mission is and anything that you want to share for our audience who maybe doesn't know a thing about Tulsa, but
Right.
this might sort of align with their passion and their heart as well.
Well, there's big ones like George Kaiser Foundation and Lobeck Taylor and others that are very tourism minded. I've appreciated, but when you get down to the ones that have heart that we work very closely with, there is a small organization called the BeHeard movement, and Evan Duguid has the best name in the world. Has really helped us when we would have amateur sports come in and really trying to make sure that our in-house community, when we're having these big events in making sure that we're also taking care of our community. So they are just this wonderful movement that they have showers and haircuts and taking care of pets and making sure that that community is also loved and cared for in those moments. And we've worked together closely through NCAA and all of that. So
And so, do they have a website?
they do. It's the BeHeardMovement.org. And they are just really great partners. I can always call Evan and saying, we've got wrestling in this week, and can you work with me? And we make sure that we're taking care of our community at the same time.
That's so great. So doing good while doing great things,
Yes.
and that's awesome. And Hunden Partners will make a contribution to
That's
the Be Heard
so
movement.
nice.
Absolutely. So that
Yeah.
is awesome for us to sort of partner with you and
Yeah.
just know that, because before today I had no idea. So
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. Okay, before we wrap up, there's so
Yeah.
much popping. I would say there are kernels popping all over the place. What have we not heard about that is currently in the works, about to open, underway, proposed, that people can look forward to in Tulsa in the coming months or years?
I would say the newest, hottest thing right now is OK Pop, which is a museum dedicated to Oklahoma pop culture. So if you think about from Will Rogers all the way to Blake Shelton, Carrie Underwood, Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks, all of these great musicians that and pop culture that is from Oklahoma. So that's opening up across from Kane's Ballroom. Bob Will's bus is already in there right now. So that'll be open in 28. Just a really cool opportunity to see that. And really, if you haven't seen so many things that have opened since 2018, like the Bob Dylan Museum, Woody Guthrie, Greenwood Rising, about Black Wall Street, that's the latest. But the Lowdown is filming right now, season 2. So we are Hollywood on the Prairie. We got voted number 18 as the best place for filmmakers to work.
Wow.
So we continue
Tulsa
to see
King?
that in Tulsa King, season 3. So,
Wow, very good. And I have to say, we got a chance to, while we were doing some work for the Great American Songbook Foundation and their museum and experience that will be developed in Carmel, Indiana, we came to Tulsa because it's a hotbed of cultural developments, including
It really is.
all those that you just mentioned, Woody
Yeah.
Guthrie and Bob Dylan, but also OK Pop. So we got to see that in process,
Right.
underway. And it's going to be so cool. And of course, we got to stop into Kane's Ballroom and at Greenwood Rising. And so there's just you and it's all within a walkable area.
all walkable.
So, yeah.
And NYU Tulsa's there now, too.
Oh, wow.
We
So
have a
there you go.
campus.
Well, very good. Well, Renee, thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today. We've had an excellent time. We've learned a
So
ton. I
fun.
hope that the audience out there who is watching take some great things away from this, lessons learned about the playbook and
Thank you.
toolkit for success. And we're going to have a great time tonight in Chicago.
I love it. It's so much fun. Thanks to my Hunden family. So.
Absolutely. And Steve, thank you so much, and continue guiding Tulsa on their journey.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Hunden Happy Hour. We'll see you next time. Hunden Happy Hour is produced by Hunden Partners, hosted by Robin Hunden, co-host Steve Hammerly, recorded in the Hunden Partners offices in Chicago, Illinois.